Hello, I'm Grimgrindel, and welcome to this video. Well folks, it's been a while, about 3 or 4 weeks, which is probably the longest we've gone without uploading a video in possibly forever, or at least for a couple of years. And I do apologise for that. We've been rather busy finalising a project that we're not yet ready to announce, so I suppose this is an announcement of a future announcement. What a tease. But let's get on with it. Today, we're having a look at the game Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. The game came out in 2010 for the Wii, the PlayStation 3, the Xbox 360, the DS, Windows, Mac, Apple phones, Android phones, and apparently Blackberries too, so it was pretty much available on everything that could play games back in 2010. I mean, chances are if your toaster was high-tech enough, it can play Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. But I am, rather specifically in this review, playing it on the Xbox 360 for reasons that are going to be pretty obvious as we go on. And while in 2010 I was vaguely aware that this game existed, I really didn't care about it because after all, it's a racing game which I'm not super into, but furthermore it's a racing game with a roster of Sega characters which I'm not exactly familiar with, as back in the day I had a Nintendo and so I was never really exposed to them. My interest in the game, however, rather quickly changed last year, when I received a build request from a user going by the name A South Dakotan Ranger, who asked me to build the Banjo-Kazooie racer from Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. And that's the rather specific reason that I'm playing on the Xbox 360 that I mentioned moments earlier. As a bonus character, if you're playing the 360 version, you can play as Banjo. Now, this of course changes everything. If Banjo and Kazooie are in the game, I'm definitely down for it. And so, now that I am down for it, let's waste no time getting down to look at it. Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. Now, to begin with, we might as well get the question that most people are probably wondering out of the way. How does this game stack up against Mario Kart? And I've got to say, it stacks up pretty darn well. I mean, no matter what, if you're going to release a kart racing game, it's going to get compared to Mario Kart, there's no avoiding that. And rather unfortunately, people are going to likely just discount your game entirely because it's not actually part of the Mario Kart franchise. And even I myself have to admit that I too am guilty of doing this. When I see games like this come out, my first reaction is usually, what's the point? After all, Mario Kart's already done it, and they've done it so well that there's really no point trying to compete with them. I mean, it's sort of like Crash Team Racing back in the day, where most people just considered the game Mario Kart for people that didn't have a Nintendo 64. But how fair is it to write off a game in such a fashion? Well, I think it's very much a case-by-case basis, and for the case of Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, I don't think it's very fair at all. Firstly, the game is super fun, which doesn't necessarily mean it's not a Mario Kart clone. I mean, Crash Team Racing and Wacky Wheels were also both super fun, but more importantly, it's super fun, and it doesn't really handle much like a Mario Kart game at all. In fact, while playing this game, I felt more like I was playing a Burnout game than I was playing a Mario Kart game. And even more impressively, I found that while playing this game, I was enjoying it neither no more nor less than an actual Mario Kart game. And I mean, if I'm having as much fun playing this game as I do Mario Kart, well, then they've done a pretty darn good job. The reason I enjoyed it so much, and the reason it did feel a bit like a Burnout game, is because the game heavily encourages you to drift around corners, and you can basically drift the entire map. And much like Burnout, the more impressive drifts you do, the more boost your vehicle's given. And as far as the controls go, the game gives a really good sense of speed, but at no point does it feel like you're not in control of your vehicle, and the controls themselves are all really tight. But I know what you're thinking. But Grim, what about the roster? This is a kart racing game. We need to know about the roster. Is it good? Is it plentiful? Tell us about the roster. Well, you'll be pleased to know that the roster's actually not bad. There's 25 characters to choose from, which, while compared to the modern-day Switch lineup of 41 characters, is a bit lackluster. But when compared to the Mario Kart that's contemporary with this game, the one that came out on the Wii, it's actually got one more character than that game's 24-character lineup. But what's even more impressive is that the 25 characters you can choose from in this game all have a lot of character themselves. That's to say that none of them feel like they're just copies of each other. They all handle slightly differently, and they all go out of their way and showboat and do little dances around. It's really quite cool, actually. For instance, each of them have their own sort of equivalents to the bullet bill that can catch you up in the race, where they're all very personalized. For instance, Banjo 1 has Kazooie hanging out the back of the backpack, waving around the magic wrench, and there's Jiggies falling down your opponents and Banjo-Kazooie music playing. It's all really rather wonderfully done, and it all feels rather special. You can really tell that they put a lot of care into every single detail of every single character in the game. And while I said, admittedly, don't know who most of these characters are, past the obvious Sonic ones where everyone recognizes them because they're pop cultural icons, and I did recognize there was one from Jet Set Radio, there wasn't a single character that I didn't enjoy playing and didn't get a kick out of them doing their thing. It's also wonderfully cartoony and bright, it's just so much fun. And the other cool thing is the game actually encourages you to play as the other characters, which I definitely wouldn't have done. I very much bought the game just to play as Banjo-Kazooie, but past the single-player campaign, the tournament or whatever it's called, there's also the missions playlist, which are basically just small challenges where you have to use a character of their choosing and complete some simple tasks. You know the sort: time trials, rival matches, collectathons, all that jazz. The only thing that disappointed me here is that there's no Banjo-Kazooie one, which would have worked well. After all, there's a Sonic one where you have to collect golden rings, and they could have done that, but instead with music notes or jiggies. And on top of that, there's also no Banjo-Kazooie map. I understand that the reason there's no mission or specific map for Banjo-Kazooie is their extra characters for the 360 version, but a Grim can still dream, and they would have been really cool additions if they had put them in. As it stands though, the maps that we did get are pretty good, and they're a good variety, though I do wish there were a few more of them, as I did find after a short amount of time I had played through all of them and were wishing for a few more. I think you can buy more as DLC, but if it doesn't come with the original game, I'm not going to count it. And so Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing. It's a darn good kart game with really cool drifting mechanics, and it has Banjo-Kazooie in it. And so, with all of that said and done, as always, thanks for watching, and until next time, I have been and still am Grim Grindle. If you want to follow me on social media, a link to my Twitter is in the description below, and if you'd like to join the Channel Grim and Grin Discord, the Echo Chamber, there's also a link for that.